day for you. The last thing you would want is a big day. Unfortunately, I have a lot of slides, but I'll try and keep them as concise as possible. Thank you for that very kind introduction, Hinesh Bhai. It's of course very true that I always am happy sharing knowledge. Whatever you have learned is one is I think obliged to share in terms of professional services, possibly PSR. We already have a concept of CSR, so something like a PSR. But also, let me tell you something very candidly, that though I actually have been a big fan of both Hollywood and Bollywood, and also I love sports. So probably if there's an area or a topic that I probably know more than my tax laws, it's probably Hollywood, Bollywood. Still, Varsha knows that because in the chamber functions, whenever there is I am, I think, more keen on the Antakshari and the quiz round which happens on films rather than the technical topics out there. But in spite of that, somehow I have never had an occasion to really deal with this subject taxation matter of expatriates, especially foreign artists and sports person as such. So it is what an irony it is that in spite of many years and a love for the subject, unfortunately there was never really a chance to really study the subject and apply it practically at times. And I think that will come across as I speak very often. So pardon me for that. But I think that's why when Mr. Paresh Shah, he was here with you earlier, when he asked me to speak on the topic, I said, good. I think there's no better way to learn a topic than to actually present, because you start to, first of all, start understanding the topic yourself before explaining to others. And therefore I said, this is a great opportunity, let me grab it. And that was also partly a selfish motive from other than all the altruistic motives that Dinesh pointed out. So this was a great opportunity to really study the subject and then try and do my best in explaining to you. Thank you. The topic, not really very difficult, as you will note. There are a lot of slides, but I think the slides are largely a compilation of details so as to try and put everything under one topic as such. And what I'll do is I'll focus more on both the artist and the sports person as well as the topic of other income, because these are the two crucial articles which are really relevant from a practitioner or a industry standpoint, and not so much pension and social security payments. All of us have dealt with when we do provident fund for expatriates and employees, and I'm sure in earlier topics this was covered. So I'll try and focus on those. So why is this topic suddenly becoming very relevant? As you all aware, of late there has been, after liberalization, there's been opening up. Earlier we used to have very few events in India. Now, as India becomes a kind of a economic powerhouse, especially in terms of the financial muscle that a lot of our middle class Indians have, clearly there is a lot of purchasing power, and that of course translates itself into various sports. So we now demand, if you remember, even in relation to tournaments for cricket, I think India very often now has been called as a bully as such, because we often bully the sponsors, we bully organizers into having tournaments in India as such. And that has been commented very often by other boards in other countries where cricket is also loved, but probably they don't have financial muscle in India. So clearly that's a sign of our economic powerhouse as being a powerhouse such. But in recent times we've also seen other events, other sports really assuming importance. You have a football league, you have a badminton league which just got over, you have a hockey league, and therefore the number of sports persons who actually are visiting India has increased in recent times. Also, the other thing that India is very famous for is, of course, our Bollywood, and Bollywood has its force of attraction. A lot of people who come in. Recent visit of Vin Diesel, of course, also was notable because it showed that a lot of our actresses also are going to Hollywood, actors and actresses, and therefore clearly there is a huge attraction. So there are a lot of people playing in sporting events, in the IPL and whatnot, and that of course leads us to our, what you call our area of specialization. What is the tax impact of some of these things? Foreign films shot in India, as you may note, at some point of time, in the Indian Income Tax Act, a specific exemption was granted under section 911. And if you look at the exemption is close to the year in which the film Gandhi was shot. And it was because you had Richard Attenborough, who came into India and who produced the film Gandhi. And at that point of time, the government was kind enough to allow him, and an exemption was given that to the extent that the shooting of the film happens in India, there will be no tax which really accrues as a result of any profit activity from the production of a film as such. Because if you were to compare it with other manufacturing activities, as you know, the profit is a total sum game of host of activities. Of course, selling is very important. Selling, R&D, manufacturing very important. But purchase and the manufacture also have a role to play in order to contribute to the ultimate profit. And that's why they thought that before a tax officer gets overzealous and asks people to pay also on the portion of films which are shot in India, then let's at least give us an exemption for that particular portion. So that is the relevance of the Indian films. Since then, of course, India hasn't become such a big, I would say, base for films being shot in India. To a certain extent, there was Ramoji Rao City and others in Hyderabad, which did attract a couple of films. So other than an Octopussy, a James Bond film which was shot long ago, and a couple of other films which have India as a base, you haven't had too many films coming in India, obviously because probably we still don't have the same kind of facilities that Hollywood and other places kind of command. And therefore, but to that extent, film shot in India, to remember 911, there is a specific exemption as such. We also have this recent phenomenon of non-resident artists also coming in. And that's become a status symbol, with a lot of industrialists having themed weddings in either Udaipur or Jaipur or Goa or wherever it is. And you have all these pop artists coming in, whether it be Beyonce, Shakira and things like that, whoever it was. And they all come and perform in India at some of these celebrity weddings. And that also is a feature which is increasing day by day. Now let's look at the taxability under the Indian Income Tax Act of artists and sportsmen. So first, section 5 to section 9. 5, as you know, defines the scope of total income, what a non-resident, and what is taxable in India. I think you must have gone through that in earlier sessions. What is actually either received in India, what is accrues in India, and finally there is this deeming fiction or whatever is deemed to accrue or arise in India, which is contained under section 9. So if you see section 9, section 911, to the business connection, whatever it covers, and also covers indirect transfers, as you may have, I saw that was one of your topics that previous speaker commented on. And then you have those 3 articles which deal with the source rule. That's 915 interest, 916 which deals with royalty, and 917 which deals with fees for technical services. So these 3 really provide that wherever the non-resident is, if as long as the source of the income is an Indian payer, and if it is meant for India, then these 3 items of income are taxable in India on a source basis, and therefore there is accordingly 195 applied on those incomes. So section 5 and section 9 really under the Domestic Act are the main base for taxation of non-residents. Within themselves, I think 5 and 9 cover a majority of the gamut of non-resident taxation is in India. You then have a section 115 BA, which deals with the specific issue of taxation of non-resident sportsmen and artists, and we'll come to that a little later. Based on 115 BBA, which is more like a rate of tax that has been kind of prescribed just like you have 112, 115A royalties fees for technical services, a flat rate which is prescribed. 115BA is also more like a prescription of a rate of tax on the services. Though as you may see in when we come to a discussion on some court rulings, the court seemed to suggest that that section was a be all and end all as far as foreign artists and sportsmen were concerned. You have a TDS section which is a mirror, which is actually mirroring what 115BA provides, that if there is a flat rate of 20%, then under 194 direct tax at 20%. And you also have a circular on the subject, circular 787, which of course again I will take you through some amount of detail, because I think this is for the first time that the CPTD circular is quite explicit and clear on different streams of income that could be earned in the course of a foreign entertainer or a foreign sportsman visiting India, and what the tax treatment would be. Moving on to, let's go to the two main sections, as I said, under the domestic law, which really regulate the taxation of a non-resident sportsman and an artist. So 115BA coverage is a non-resident sportsman, that's important, including an athlete, and the term athlete and a sportsman is often used sparingly, in the sense sometimes term sportsman is used, sometimes the term athlete is used, not too much difference really, which has been made out by the courts, and therefore both have to be considered very similar. Who is not a citizen from India and who earns income either from a participation in game in India from a game or sport, either an advertisement or a contribution of articles relating to any game or sport in India in newspapers, magazines or journals. So these streams of income, if earned by a non-resident sportsman, then that gets taxed at a flat 20% of the above income. Because there is a flat rate of 20% which was prescribed, clearly there is no deduction expenditure which is contemplated, and the section provides, 194E provides that the tax will have to be deducted at the time of credit or payment, which was earlier very similar to 195 in terms, or other TDS provisions which requires you to deduct at time of credit or payment, which was earlier. And if the 20% is deducted, then with a view to try and reduce the difficulty of the sportsman or the entertainer, it says that there is no need of filing a return. So though 139(1) may say that every person has to file a return in India as such, every company or every person has to file a return. Here in this, in terms of this section, just like in the case of exemption even given to a non-resident Indian, who if he pays tax at a flat rate is not required to file his return of income. Similarly here, if tax is deducted at source, then there is no need to file a separate return of income. Other than those three receipts which have been clearly laid out, it applies also to a non-resident sports association that earns guarantee money in relation to the sport, and this is where a major amount of sport associations would earn income. So it could be the England Cricket Board. England is currently touring in India, as you know. Australia is all set to come and tour us. So the Australian Cricket Board will get certain amount of guarantee money for participating in the matches. England, as you know, maybe 4 tests, 3 one-day internationals, or 3 T20s, whatever it is. So the full flat sum is kind of agreed upon, and that kind of guarantee money, whatever is actually taxable in the hands of whatever is the board there, the England Cricket Board or the West Indian Cricket Board or the Australian Cricket Board, as the case may be. And third, so as to kind of equate both sportsmen and entertainers together, a non-resident entertainer also is not a citizen in India and who earns income from performances in India is also taxed at this flat 20%. So 115BA is a little universal in its application. It covers both sportsmen and athletes as well as entertainers. So the thrust of the section seems to be on any person who is performing, a performer. In Hindi we would call him nachaiya or whatever. Saying somebody who's actually, the essence of there is not the individual but the performance of that of that activity, whether by an entertainer or by a sportsman while in India, that gets captured and is taxed at 20%. As I told you that Circular 787 is the next thing that is pretty explicit on how sportsmen are to be taxed in India, non-resident sportsmen. And what does the circular say? The circular says, one, that receipts of events, because 115AA makes a mention, as you saw, of 3 categories, and how does it further broken up? So the circular says that you could have an event or a show, and that may include, there could be sponsorship money, there could be gate money, gate collections that you often have, there could be advertisement revenues, which are often the biggest driver as such, and there will be sale of broadcasting and telecast rights in relation to the performance or the event, rents from hiring out space and rents from caterer, etc. The circular also takes note of the fact that you are, of course, as a non-resident, allowed to either opt for the provisions of the domestic law or the provisions of the double tax avoidance agreements or the tax treaties in terms of section 90 of the Income Tax Act, whichever is more beneficial to you. And since you have an option of taking either whatever is more beneficial to you, they have clearly clarified there that such activities which are taxed under 115AA and 194E under the domestic law would get taxed under the article for artists and sportsmen. And if you note, normally in terms of the UN model commentary, the article on artists and sportsmen will cover and will apply to personal activities of sportsmen or artists in India, which accrues to such sportsmen and artists, on advertising income or sponsorship income, if it is related directly or indirectly to the performance or the appearance in India. So as I said, again, the entire thrust, even in the article of the tax treaty, is in relation to that particular performance in India. So if an individual, if a singer, a pop artist, whoever comes here and he performs, anything which is either directly related to that performance or even indirectly related to the performance while in India is sought to be taxed under article for artists and sportsmen. You see that they have listed out several streams of income, but the circular clarifies that when it comes to sale of broadcasting or telecast rights or sale of performance of the if there is a sale of the telecast right in relation to the event or the performance as such, then it will not be the article on artists and sportsmen which will apply, but rather the article on royalty which will apply, because this is a post-event. The thrust is to tax all income which are either directly or indirectly accruing as a result of that event per se. But once the event gets recorded, once it is recorded and then telecast, and for that telecast, if there are royalties, etc., which are earned or revenues which are earned, then that will be taxed under the head of royalties and not under the head of artists and sportsmen. And finally, the other income will apply to cases where there is guarantee money arising to foreign sports association, because in the treaty this is not specifically defined within the article as such, but as you know, in 115AA it is very clearly specified. In the treaty it is not specified, so they say that this will be taxed under other income. The circular also clarifies, and as I said, the circular is a pretty speaking circular and pretty explicit in terms of its interpretation. So it says very clearly that performance in India gratuitously and without consideration. So if someone is, is what you say, altruistic enough to come and perform on his own because he believes in a particular a mission or whatever it is, then that is clearly not taxable as such. Performance in India, an artist may come as a part of his overall contract with a music company, with a recording company, and promote the sale of records. And if that kind of a promotional road tour has nothing to do with a particular performance as such, an activity in relation to a particular performance, then that will not be taxable in India, is what the CBT has clarified. And the third clarification in relation to an amount being exempt is the amount or the consideration which is paid for acquiring a copyright of a performance in India for subsequent sale, broadcast or telecast abroad. Now why this? Can anyone tell me why is this third exemption given?
To promote the Indian.
Right, I agree, to promote, yes, to promote the event outside India, that's right. But what is the basis under the law? Why would it be exempted?
Commercial use outside.
That's right, but I'm looking for a more technical answer. It is because if you look at section 916 and 917, as I mentioned, they contain what is the embodied, what is called the source rule. The moment you make a payment for an intellectual property right, which is utilized by a person in India for business in India, it becomes taxable. The moment under section 917, you make a payment for a fee for technical service, managerial, supervisory, whatever, technical fee, for which is utilized in India, it becomes taxable. But both these sections also have a very important exception, and the exception is for payment of an intellectual property right for earning a source of income outside India or for a business outside India, both 916 and 917. And when that is provided in 916 and 917, so for example, if your client was to make a payment to either a foreign law firm or any other foreign service provider, normally you may want to process it at the fee for technical services. But if it is for starting a business outside India of your Indian client or for earning a source of income outside India, please remember that that amount does not accrue or deem to accrue or rise in India. It does not deem to accrue or rise in India, it accrues outside India, because the source is the foreign customer and it is a question of source. There the source is the Indian customer, because the Indian customer is utilizing it in Indian business, therefore taxable under 916, 917. In a case where you are recording a performance but you are using it for selling and broadcasting and telecasting abroad, you are using it in order to earn monies for outside India, and therefore this is not taxable in India because of section 916, exemption as such. What the circular then goes on to say is, just gives a list of illustrative examples, consideration for live performance or a live telecast or a broadcast in India, and consideration paid to acquire copyright of performance for subsequent sale, broadcast or telecast in India. So when it is broadcast or telecast in India, then 916 applies. When it is outside India, exception to 916 applies as such. Having looked at 115 BBA as well as 194E, now let us look at some rulings. There are very, very few rulings which are actually available on this subject as such. As I mentioned, there is not much opportunity, but because also of the fact that there are very few rulings and therefore not too much of discussion. But there are some which have come in as a result of our organization of the World Cups. And the case of PILCOM is a committee. PILCOM was a committee which was set up between India, Sri Lanka and Pakistan, because as you know, when we organized the joint World Cup, this must be in 97. If not 87, it must be 97 when we all, 96 when we all organized jointly the World Cup, when all of you actually shed tears when Sachin Tendulkar got out and we lost badly to Sri Lanka in the semi-final. So this was the same World Cup at that point of time, and PILCOM was therefore the organizing committee. So PILCOM, when it made and remitted the monies, it probably said that I am not liable to deduct tax at source, and in that context, when the matter went to the court, what did the court say? The court said that the only precondition is that the amount should be payable to a non-resident sports person or association in relation to the game played in India. So to the extent the games that were all played in India and payments were made to different sports associations, they were clearly taxable under 115 BBA. If PILCOM had also had in those days a London bank account in order to make payments for matches which were played in Pakistan as well as in Sri Lanka. That clearly will not accrue or arise. It will not arise in India as such under Section 9 or Section 5, and therefore it would not be taxable at all. So that was not considered as taxable. They say it is independent, but here if you see the second observation is where I think the court went a little wrong, and they say it is independent of all other sections and it has nothing to do with accrual or assessment of income as mentioned in Section 9, which I think is a fallacy, because 115BBA is always only a section which determines the rate of tax, which prescribes the rate of tax. Your accrual of income has always to be as per Section 5 and Section 9 as such. Just because the rate of tax is mentioned something of capital gains doesn't mean that capital gains accrue as per Section 112. It is not an independent section. It will always accrue with the under 45 to 48 of the Act, and a rate may be prescribed in 112 as such. So that is the same way one has to interpret. I think the High Court, with utmost respect, has gone wrong here. They then went on to add that once that 191 is applied, once the income accrues under 115BBA, then statutory obligation in 194E comes in, and you have to deduct tax at source as we saw, 20%. And when the taxpayer contended that you please apply the rates of the DTAA, because I am paying to associations where the DTAA also will apply, they said, look, we are really looking here at a deduction of tax at source. As in when you come into the question of the final assessment, you please produce all your agreements in relation to DTAA and we will consider, which I also think is a wrong approach, because if you see today under the Act, rates in force, Section 237A, rates in force, says rates in force which is prescribed under the domestic law, which here would have been 194E, or the provisions of the tax treaty, whichever is more favorable. So when the provisions for TD has also prescribed that, what is the authority of the court to say that no, you can look at this only when it comes to the final assessment? So to that extent, again, I believe that someone did not really guide them well, that you can look into it. Of course, they would have had to examine the provisions of the DTAA, and for example, if here, as per the provisions of the tax treaty, the amount was exempt, then it would not be taxable in their hands. Curiously enough, there was another committee called the INDCOM committee. One was a PILCOM committee, and then a committee which was set up of Indian officials called the INDCOM committee, and they also had to make payment for matches which were in India. The Calcutta High Court decision rendered after 6 months, but already they watered down what the earlier court said. So very surprising, within 6 months, and somehow counsel did not even appraise the court of what was decided in the earlier one, maybe because he felt otherwise he would have a completely losing case, and therefore he chose to argue still that under 9.1 it does not accrue, and here they have correctly said that yeah, it does accrue under 9.1. So it's not as if 115BBA is an independent section by itself. Income first accrues under 9.11, but then having accrued, the rate of tax has to be determined as per 115BBA. They said once a match is played in India, then 115BBA applies, 194E will also apply, and therefore it was correctly taxed here in India as such. In context of another point which came up there, because this really doesn't have otherwise comes up very regularly, but this came up in the course of that particular ruling where they said umpires and match referees cannot come within the provisions of 115BBA because they are not athletes or sportsmen as such. As you know, under the domestic law, in order to try and tap payments made to umpires and referees, they amended and notified under 194J because of the IPL and the kind of monies that were being earned. There it was notified under 194J as any payments to such umpires were notified under 194J. The short point is that they will not come under 115BBA read with 194E. Then look at another ruling. They said very few rulings, but some of them are important rulings. One ruling of International Merchandising Corporation, again for a tennis tournament which was to be held in Chennai. I don't know, maybe the Indian body was based out of Delhi. The tournament was in Chennai. There were people, foreign players also who were invited, and their respective tennis associations, the association of ATP, actually lent these players, and when these payments were made to that association, again the tribunal held that this is correctly taxable under 115BBA as well as 194E. We then look at another case which has to deal with the BCCI, and when BCCI was making payment of some guarantee money to a foreign sports association, and again the same arguments made. Tax department said this is taxable under 115AA. Council of the SSC said that look, you have to also look at tax treaties, and in this particular case, it is not really for playing matches. It is a kind of a reciprocal arrangement that we are having, by which when the Indian cricket team also comes in and plays in England, we will take care of all their kit allowances, everything, and their upkeep while they are visiting. And therefore it is not really for the purposes of the sport activities in India as such, therefore not to be taxed. I think when the tribunal demanded, the taxpayer was not able to give clear, concrete proof or evidence that that was the case. So this was a case where there was no data which was available to the tribunal, and therefore tribunal could not conclusively say that it was not taxable under the DTAA. So the council of the SSC made that submission because there were no facts available, and therefore it was only relegated back to the tax authorities as such. But they did recognize this point that if there is DTAA which applies, and if in the specific facts of the case you believe that the article for artists and sportsmen does not apply to you, then the amount can be completely exempted from tax. Now let us look at more specifics of the DTAA in relation to both artists and sportsmen, and I've actually put down for you a comparison of how it is normally dealt with either by the OECD commentary, by the UN commentary, and by the US Model Convention as such. In short, let's only look at the UN Model Commentary, because normally most tax treaties that India has entered into largely go by the UN Model Commentary, because clearly, like many other countries, India was still a developing nation as such, and therefore we were not in the club of the OECD, and we had more concerns on source, and therefore we normally adopt the UN model as far as possible. So here essentially it gives you a right to tax activities or performances of sportsmen. So income derived by entertainers such as theatre, motion picture, radio, television artists, so and so, from personal activities exercised in the other contracting state. So for a person who is coming from whichever country and who has exercised his personal activities, Glenn Maxwell got a huge amount of sum from our Mumbai team, Mumbai Indians, about 2 years ago. And therefore, for exercising those personal activities, for playing in the IPL, income derived by Glenn Maxwell as a sports person from his personal activities in the IPL in the other contracting state, which would be India here, can be taxed in that other state, when we can be taxed in India, except for a certain de minimis amount. So it could be $5,000, $10,000. So except for a small amount which is exempted because of pure administrative or relief or convenience, the rest of the money India has, the Indian tax authorities have a right to tax. So for all these IPL's money which comes in and which say a Glenn Maxwell or anybody will earn, as per the UN model, once he plays here and for the performance of those activities in India, it will be taxable in India. Let us look at Article 17.1. What are the features? One, that as we saw, it allows India or the source country to tax incomes arising from a non-resident entertainer, artist or a sportsman for his personal activities. Again, just like 115BBA, the whole emphasis is on the performance of that personal activity as such. So that is allowed to be taxed as such. Factors which are not relevant, whether the man is either employed, self-employed, or is P in the source country or not. And one thing to be noted is that very often if you were to apply Article 7, which is the business profits, or Article 15, which is dependent personal services, or 14, which is independent personal services, then he may have spent less than 180 days either as an employee or as not having a fixed base. or may not have a PE in India, and therefore he could probably escape taxation. And therefore the question will arise, is it taxable here as per this or as per those articles? And therefore this particular article 17 contains a very clear saying that notwithstanding what is mentioned in 7, 14, 15, saying those articles are not really applicable here, and India will have a right to tax that amount as such. Location or residence of the payer again is not important. Where he comes from is not important. Whether he was in Australia, he chose to go to say a tax haven, Labuan, and then came in, not at all relevant. Where he lives, not relevant. Once performance in India, taxable in India. Whether performance is a single time performance or he comes in very regularly. You would have two types of people. Brett Lee was in love with India, come and acted, also came and acted in an Indian movie, so much more regular. There may be someone like Boycott will say, I'll never come to India, I'll send my mother-in-law to Pakistan, or some kind of statement like that. He may not want to come in India, not relevant. Even if he has come one time and played here, then he is taxed on that particular income as such. And then finally, as I said, many countries give you a little bit of a minimum exemption. This is something like a basic limit. Say if the basic limit is 250,000 rupees or whatever. Here there is a basic limit which is set in dollars, either 1,500 rupees, 5,000. It is up to the two states, the two contracting states to decide what that basic limit will be. But that is normally also used in the treaty as such. Now, what do you mean by entertainers and athletes? So, what does it really cover? As we saw in the earlier rulings, umpire and match referees were not covered as such. But then what does it cover? As per the OECD and the commentary, the UN model commentary, it covers theatre, motion picture, radio, television artists. So very much all your entertainers here get covered. A musician, a stage performer, film actor. Also, if he is acting in a television commercial, and as you now know that your major earnings of some of these cine stars are from film commercials and not necessarily only from films per se. And someone who gets a fee for once in a lifetime appearance in a television commercial or movie. What is excluded? Now again, do remember that this is the UN model commentary and their views on what it includes, what it doesn't include. But when you are applying this to a practical situation, you have to always look at the specific wordings of that particular treaty. Because based on this, you could have different formats. And if two countries decide that, look, there is a lot of people who are coming in from a particular country into India. Say from East Europe, you are having a lot of models who are coming into India. You want to either favor or not favor them and therefore provide for a particular treatment, then you will have to look at that treatment. What I have mentioned here is only what is contained in the UN model commentary. So a visiting conference speaker, a former politician who receives a fee for speaking engagements, as you may have noted, when Clintons declared their income, the Clintons probably earned more money from their speaking engagements than anything else. Or like a George Bush and things like that. So when they asked President Obama also in future what is he likely to going to earn most from, it is going to be from speaking engagements. Because they can range into millions of dollars as such. So, but that is not really covered within the term entertainer or sportsman as such. Some other things which I have mentioned also not covered. I won't take you through each one of them. The slides are there with you. So as I said, this is the model commentary. This clearly mentions what is taxable, what is not taxable. Again, entertainers and artists are mentioned. But what does entertainers and artists again include for the purpose of both the Act as well as for the purpose of the treaty? And whilst 115 doesn't give us a clue, the only clue we get is from some rulings which were rendered in the context of section 80RR. 80RR was like your ATO, ATHNC, a section which was designed in order to promote export of services. And therefore, if there were sportsmen, if there were your television artists, if there were artists who earned foreign exchange for rendering services outside India, then brought that money back into India, then that was exempt. It is no longer on the statute, or the exemption is no longer available after assessment year 2004-5. So 80RR is academic, but the various cases which have gone to the court actually tell us what courts have interpreted in relation to the term artists or artists and sportsmen as such. And it includes even a dress designer. So Tarun Tahiliani, is a famous disc designer. You'll find his shop very close to the present location. I think Ensemble was the name of his shop, and he was a very famous dress designer. So, and when he claimed ATRR exemption, I think the point that was made was that is a dress designer an artist or not? And what was probably highlighted was that he is trying to, he is an artist because he designs beautiful pieces in relation to Indian art and to Indian culture in relation to dressing, and that's why he is an artist as such. Similarly, Amitabh Bachchan, for all his programs on Kaun Banega Crorepati, was held to be an artist as such. So Shah Rukh Khan and so often so others. Only a person unlucky was Harsha Bhogle, because probably he was not very favorable to the tribunal member, or I don't know what happened, how he fought with the tribunal member. It may not have given him his due credit or due share of importance, because there they said that no, he is only a commentator, that doesn't really require any art or application as such. The argument that was made was that, if you see the program before a match is really broadcast, they show you a lot about the city itself. So they'll show you Marine Drive, they'll show you probably the Sangrahalaya and a lot of other things, Jahangir Art Gallery, and a lot of places where you have fun. And he said that no, the commentator has to do a lot of research, and he has to do a lot of, and he is actually an artist in order to present. It is not an easy job. Nobody can simply come and start giving commentary as such. But somehow that did not find too much of sympathy from the judge, and they said that no, he is not eligible for ATRR. In the context of PILCOM, again, they said players of cricket associations, because this is the same decision which then went to the High Court, which we just saw, and they said the players of cricket associations will also be entertainers as such for the purpose of Article 70. Then we go to sportsperson and sportsmen. Again, not expressly defined, but in terms of the model commentary. And as I mentioned, sometimes, alternatively, sometimes some countries that we have, in the tax treaty use the term athlete and not a sportsperson, but that should not really make any difference at all. And sportsperson therefore includes, in terms of the model commentary, all the ones which I mentioned on the left, runners, jumpers, swimmers. So all kinds of sports are by and large covered. Again, as you see, billiards, snooker, that also has become very popular in India. We've had actually more world champions in billiards and snooker than probably any other game. Nobody really knows that, but that's a fact.